B2B and B2C commerce. And I'd like to invite to the stage Svetlana Hoffman, who's the founding partner of EPTA-X. Oh, there you are. Hello, lovely to meet you again. And I'll let you introduce your panel and get them warmed up. And no, don't go, guys. This is a good one. Please, please. Yeah. Close the doors.
That's a great start. And that was unsolicited. It's not.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Come closer, come closer. There we go. It's just the three of us here. Okay. Oh, hello.
Can you hear me? There we go.
What about this one?
Oh, you're George, right?
I'm George, yeah. Good to meet you.
Good, George.
Is this one working?
Good, yeah, I think it does.
Great.
Mics are up. Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for staying. We're going to be as fast as we can possibly can. I know that your stomachs are working at the moment and we need some sugar as well. So I'm going to be talking today with these 4 wonderful panelists. They're going to be sharing some of the insights about their they will be bringing a different perspective from their kind of an angles of travel, fintech, payments. So I have here George. Is the CEO of Soul Supplier. And let's see what AI says about you. Yeah? It says, a digital platform and marketplace connecting consumers with sneaker releases and retailers. Is that true? Yeah?
It's pretty spot on. Yeah.
Spot on.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we have an Alvaro. He's a global e-commerce commercial lead at Nestle. And AI says about you overseeing digital commerce strategy and partnerships for one of the world's largest consumer goods companies. Fair?
Very good.
Fair
Couldn't say
statement.
it better.
Excellent. So the lady, Luciana.
Luciana,
Luciana.
both are fine.
Fintech Value Add Service Manager at Hotel Beds. AI says that you are focusing on the intersection of payments, fintech, and global travel distribution.
That is true.
That's true. Excellent. So no mistakes with AI at this stage. And Bandon, Product Manager. Lead at Riverty. Is it Riverty?
It's Riverty.
Riverty, excellent. And it says they're developing solutions that simplify payments and enhance user experience across European markets. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Excellent. That's what the ChatGPT says about them. But what I'm going to ask you guys is if you can give me one fun fact about you that ChatGPT doesn't know. What makes you human?
I absolutely love paddle.
Oh, there we go. Another fun fact, Alvaro?
I'm going to give you one related to e-commerce, actually. So I started working in e-commerce before Amazon launched in Spain. And actually, that was the same year that I met my girlfriend, now wife.
Oh, so wow.
Did you have a clip of that? It's going to come handy in the future at some point. So
Yeah, not so much a fun fact, but I started running 10 years back, and my wife and those who do not run find it really interesting. Why would someone pay to run for 22 kilometers or 44 kilometers? So that's what I often get heard, but that's probably one fact. Yeah.
Fantastic, Lucian.
And a fun fact about me, I've been in payments for 10 years, but my life dream was actually to be a Broadway star, which is quite awkward considering I'm already nervous with these people right here. So yeah, that's how it turned out.
Wow, excellent.
discounts.
Excellent. Well, my name is Svetlana or Lana Hoffman. Everybody knows me as Lana Hoffman. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, it's still Svetlana. And I'm a transformation and operations essentially expert. My jam is payments and innovating payment products. And one of the fun facts about me is that I'm constantly curious about money, and I'm amazed how much we know a little about it. And that actually literally kind of makes every aspect of our life is influenced by money, and nobody actually teaches us a lot about it. So it's time to learn more about money. So if we can kickstart, my first theme, guys, I would like to have a conversation about the marketplace effects. So if we say that how would you say that the online marketplaces are reshaping B2B and B2C ecosystems today? So do you want to start from you, Luciana?
Well, I think we've covered most of the topics during the day. But I think something that we're seeing is a high demand for personalization, you know, and that comes with really understanding who your clients and your consumers are, both in the B2C and B2B space. When I'm saying understanding who they are, it's how they behave, their attempts to engage with your brand, what payment methods they're requesting, why they are requesting them, and trying to really deep dive into data to make strategic decisions. And I think we have very pioneers and first-class brands that are really setting the standard bar high for all of us. And I think it's happening already, and we're all getting there. Yeah.
What would be those pioneers? What do you think? Who is actually setting a bar?
So on that point, and we've been discussing throughout the day, marketplaces are not new, right? They've been around for a while. And if you think about yourselves, in the last month, I'm sure all of you, or 90% of you, had used a marketplace, either for travel, shopping, services. What I think is different is the pace. Right now, it's the marketplaceification of everything. Everyone has a marketplace, right? If I use the example of Nestle, we're a food and beverage company, so you will think, do you actually sell on marketplaces? And 20% of our total sales are happening online, and 40% of that 20% is happening on marketplaces. So it's a massive business for us already. And it's happening more and more because if you think about it, we were just talking about Decathlon today, but Walmart 5 years ago, they launched a marketplace as a test. Now it's massive. Tesco has a marketplace. So when I work with these retailers, when I talk to them, the first thing that they ask me, well, maybe not the first, but they will always ask me about a marketplace. So it's happening everywhere. It's reshaping the expectations of the shoppers, the brands, and the retailers. So I think it's not going to stop. And as I said, who is creating that trend? It's because we have companies like Amazon, Alibaba that have been doing this for 25 years. So now we all expect the same experience that you had there, but with these new marketplaces, which is not easy. But I think the answer for all of us in the room is that we need to have a marketplace strategy.
What about you guys? What would you say?
I think if Amazon are the kings or queens of convenience, then niche marketplaces like the Soul Supplier, which focuses on sneakers and streetwear, are the kings or queens of community, trust, and culture. Because I'm sure many of you have gone onto Amazon and you've bought a product that it doesn't quite turn up to be exactly what you thought it would be. Perhaps it wasn't even the right brand or the right box, you know. So they're the kings of convenience, but are they the kings of trust? And I think for a niche marketplace like us, we built our content and our community to help people trust what they're buying, because limited shoes are very easily faked, and it's all a game of trust. So convenience is important, but someone is prepared to wait a week or two if they know they're getting the right product, especially if they're paying twice the retail price for it. So I think we're in an era of forgetting how important this human element and trust and why people buy in the first place. And we're focusing very much on AI and automation and all of this, which I've heard a lot of, right? But actually the reason they buy is what we should be thinking just as much about.
That's actually a good angle because, we're focusing on how they're buying, not why they're buying. That's a very good, that's a good. So how they're buying and trust. Now, one thing is to trust a product I'm buying, but now I need to trust to open up the gateway into my bank account by using my card or bank details. So what would you say from your angle, how that's shaped?
Yeah. I think what we're noticing are two specific trends with that regard. So as you mentioned on the niche marketplaces as well. So we are seeing that consumers have more options on the table also. I mean, there are marketplaces from all over the globe entering the European markets, as we know. And all of them bring different value propositions, which also means that the payment mix has to be fine-tuned to that marketplace itself. So at least from a payment provider perspective, we at least see that each marketplace is treated a bit differently from the point of view of trust, identity, authentication, the payments experience. Everything is a bit fine-tuned to that marketplace and what it offers. For example, a company that sells shoes, versus a company that's doing travel, you can't have the same embedded experience for both of them. So what we are seeing is bit niche marketplaces, but also niche payment experiences for them.
That's interesting, which brings me to ask a question like there is one marketplace which is a digital virtual space where we sell and buy products, and then we think about securities, the way we pay for different products or different services. What about that kind of a constant difference between the actual physical spaces, the cultural differences, how we buy and shop and how we... So there's always this kind of a tension about being a kind of a global and apply these global strategies, which then actually makes an assumption that we are all equal in a way that we are equally behave, etc. But then you need to be very relevant locally, that you actually adjust your to kind of cultural behavior. Who's going to how a different people in different countries or different cultures will choose different way of shopping or different way of they expect differently things. So how do you kind of keep up that tension between being kind of a global but still be locally relevant? Anybody can take
I can attempt, because this one is a challenge, I think, for any global organization. How do you maintain consistency? And you were talking before about Decathlon, how many different payment methods you have locally. You also want the shopper to have the right experience, right? So for us, if I think about it, for example, in Latin America, in India, people prefer to buy in small stores, locally, pay in hand. How do I ensure that I replicate that experience in a marketplace is very, very difficult. Here we're talking about payments, which is a beautiful part of the experience, but the most difficult one is the delivery. Pick, pack, ship, that's what's taking our money, our margin, and the most challenging one. If you receive something from Amazon or from your marketplace that is not what you expected, you're not going to shop again. And that's the reality, right? So we're talking about the friction in the payment process, but the real pain point is the delivery, the unpacking, the unboxing experience. So for us, what we are trying to do is to optimize the portfolio for each one of them. I'm going to give you an example because you were talking about what is the shopper expecting on the marketplace. There is this big retailer in China, Pinduoduo, is the second largest online retailer in China, and it's all about social experiences. They have group buying. Basically, you find 10 friends, you shop together, and you get a 10% discount. So for them, we offer a range very, very different compared to Amazon. For example, on Amazon UK, I know you're going to shop Nespresso and you want variety. So I look for variety packs. On the other one is a bulk buying. So any market will have those nuances. How do you adapt to them? Is how do you actually win? And I don't think you can have a one-fits-all approach. It's not possible.
Yeah. Any take on the payment side, especially?
I think, I would say that the cultural nuance is quite important on the payment side. I think panels before that have talked about that quite a lot. And even the same payment experience can mean different things in different markets. And just to take an example, so we do a lot of buy now, pay later and credit in the checkout, but it means different things for different people. Across the European markets, especially I live in the Netherlands where it's about just convenience. Whereas in Germany, buy now, pay later existed before BNPL was a thing. So, 4 decades back, people used to buy things on invoice, get a letter at home that you can pay it in 14 days. It used to exist, previous generations. And for them, it's you try before you buy. It's less about convenience. It's about, okay, I want to shop 3 things and maybe I return one of them so I don't have to pay for it right now. And that's where you have to fine tune your customer experience. So your experience in one ecosystem or a geography cannot be the same in the other, even though payment method is the same. So it means different things to different people.
How much difficulties do you think you're going to need to kind of go through? Because every different country will still have different, not just the cultural elements, but you have regulatory, you've got rules, laws. In Germany, it's laws, yeah? And there are tons of books of exceptions on those laws. So,
yeah,
so how would you,
absolutely.
I mean, that also adds the complexity to your system, and if you want to be a global, but at the same time you need to comply.
Yeah, I think somebody in the last panel mentioned about legislation at the last point, and I think that's a big thing for payments, especially for credit or on the checkout. For B2B, trade credit has existed for a long time, and B2C also credit or buy now, pay later is becoming quite a thing. And almost all European countries, I mean, there's a EU-wide regulation coming up called the Consumer Credit Directive, and there's a UK-specific on the buy now, pay later legislation. So we need to look at it in 2 parts, right? So one is, what are the things that stay common across different geographies? So typically, how do you identify a customer? How do you do risk and fraud? That part almost remains same. That could be a centralized engine that you build. but there are things around consumer protection which are different for each country. And over there, I would say that you really have to think in modules rather than thinking in customizations. You can't be building 10 experiences in 10 countries, but you can build modules that, okay, consumer protection means X, Y, Z, and I need to build this X, Y, Z, and which blocks I put in place depends country to country. So I think it's just the way you build and think about it.
Unpacking when we receive it, maybe from your perspective, different cultural kind of adaptation of your services or sending your products in different countries. Is it that you're also thinking about the unpacking experience, or how do you localize it?
We are London, born and bred and focused. We serve 4.5 million monthly, and we are very focused on the UK. And I've done that because I bootstrapped the business out of my bedroom 11 years ago to where it is now, 33 people in the Shoreditch office. We've always been self-funded, so we've had to be careful with how we focus. But back to that point of sneaker culture is driven by real human beings, you know. So you can get as many recommendations from AI as you want, but ultimately that they have come from somewhere. They have seen somebody like their friend or somebody on Instagram wearing something. So we focus very much on that part of the journey, which is how do people get inspired? Why do they then come to us in the first place? And then when they're buying from our marketplace, we work with quality over quantity. So a smaller group of verified sellers that we know very well. We don't know all of them very well, but there's a huge percentage of power sellers in our network on our marketplace, which drive a huge volume of orders. So our customers, even though we're not one of the big marketplaces like StockX or Goat, we are a marketplace that you can rely on in terms of the tech authentication process and the verification of sellers. Because that's what we found people wanted. When they see the verified badges, when they see how many items they've sold, they can rely on the quality rather than a product or a marketplace there's too much of it.
And authenticity, that's
if they've waited 2 weeks for their product, in some cases, for it to be verified, and then it turns up and it's not legit, it's a big problem. They've been patient. Yeah.
Luciana, it's just more of a service. Like it's nothing to unpack, it's the bed. An experience that the person will have.
Yeah, in our case, we're focused on B2B. So there's a human touch there of our commercial staff and how they're reaching out to the businesses we support that, to me, cannot be replaced. AI is fantastic, but we're leveraging a lot the details and the information that we get from our staff. Because at the end of the day, for us, it's not so much of enhancing the checkout experience, but really putting the data that we handle at the service of our partners so that they can grow along our side, right? So when we think about AI, we just try to rethink it on how we can put the data within new tools that can help them grow their business. So that's a little bit of our focus because we are 100% online already, and we try to think of it from that standing point.
A quick thing on this introducing AI at checkout, right? There's a lot of instances where you can introduce recommendations from AI or assistants, and if you're not transparent with it and you're acting like it's a real human, which I've seen many platforms do, and then the human finds out that it's actually AI, you lose the sale at that point because they lose trust. And this is the same when you phone up somebody now, or a company, and it's the AI voice, or you can't quite tell, and then you realise after asking it something in 2 different ways that this is an AI person. You're like, shit, I need to speak to a real person. So what this is all about now is transparency, because there's an epidemic of trust online. AI content's flooding the internet, AI hype is everywhere. So the hidden buyers, the ones that are really going to spend a lot and research you to find your business, they are always buying on trust, you know, and what people are saying out there. So if you've got some dodgy AI assistant or AI checkout assistant, it's not transparent. It can actually completely hinder the process. So don't implement something just because AI is the hype right now. And we've embedded AI in all parts of our business, by the way. to analyze data, to help create content, to optimize ads, etc., like in all different parts. So I'm all in on AI, but I'm also all in on the human experience and trust. This is what we are going to forget, and in 10 years we're going to look back and be like, we messed up a little bit there. We thought it was all about AI, but AI is feeding from human beings, and right now it can't create original thought, and that's what they're all trying to crack. So until they get that, we're good.
Can I just jump in on that? Regarding AI, I think it's moving at a very fast pace when you're putting the focus on customer experience and B2C. But I don't think it's moving with the same celerity when it comes down to operational process. I think it would be very nice to see how AI can actually improve operational processes that come behind of the checkout experience and the customer experience, because it's moving at a very fast pace, but sometimes businesses, we can't keep up, you know? Behind so many personalized experiences and so many different scenarios, there's a lot of manual processes from a payments perspective, and I think it would be very interesting to see how in the next couple of months or years we can see that, you know, put AI actually to the benefit of merchants that are selling and behind those operational processes.
Can I say the opportunity this has created? While some people do want that convenience and speed that AI creates, it's also created a massive opportunity for people to deal with real human beings. So the maddest example of this is when I'm booking holidays now, I actually use a travel agent and a real human What? Why am I saying things like this? I sound like some dystopian film, right? So I just use, a real person, right, who works at a travel agent, who's super experienced, knows what she's doing, and we've gone back to her multiple times because I'm so fed up with some of the experiences I've got online now when purchasing and the way that things are packaged up. You don't have that focus on quality and trust that, because the real human's not deciding if this is good information or not. So it's that human in the loop thing. There's now this opportunity to be more human and win, and especially when it comes to conversion and checkout. I know we spoke a lot about this.
No, but can I build on those 2 points? Because I think it's spot on. Here today we talk about agentic, which I think is where I don't think we have the trust yet. I don't trust an AI agent with my credit card, not yet. But where I think it's really powerful is in the search. For example, right now what we are seeing, and it's happening everywhere. For example, Amazon has their own model, their own LLM, which is called Rufus. And what they are seeing is that 25% of the sales this year will have used Rufus at some point during the purchase. And maybe they still decide, and that's your point, we need the human in the loop. But AI is answering the questions, is guiding you in the process. And for me, what keeps me awake at night is how do I make sure that our brands are there? Because we've been optimizing for SEO, and you were mentioning it this morning. We've been optimizing for SEO for 15 years. Now the new acronym is GEO, so Generative Engine Optimization. And we're trying to work it backwards to understand how to be there. So when you ask, what is the best coffee that I can drink for this price point, how do I make sure that Nescafe or Nespresso is there? So we are really struggling because, and maybe that's your point, your brand is love. People are going for your brand. Our categories are very commoditized. Brand loyalty is going down. For example, in Asia, 70% of the searches start with a brand name. In Europe, 30%, because we have private label, because we don't care about the brands. I just want the product. And for me, AI is something that I must learn, even if I'm 100% with you. Until the trust is there, we still need to do the checks, the balances, the person in the loop. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. The biggest brands in our industry that have come up over the last 3 years, the best brands that have come up, the Represents, the Cortés, the many different streetwear, UK-born and bred brands have come up because they're founder-driven and built on trust. And this is really interesting. While some of the bigger brands who are more faceless have kind of struggled a bit more, especially in the markets, right? We've seen these founder-led, trust-driven brands. This has already been going on. Especially Gen Z and young consumers, we're seeing social media reach peaked in 22 for 16 to 24 age group, and they've stopped using it more. What they're looking for now are niche communities they can trust, and they are also looking for experiences that are not flooded with content but more focused. So premium content subscriptions. Like I've seen some of the stats behind, is it the Times and the Financial Times as well? in terms of how they've increased their premium content subscriptions to generate trust, because they're focused on well-researched, good content. That's what people want now. Again, this flood of shit content has created a thing where people are like, give me the stuff that's well-researched.
And that it's real.
That's
Because we
real.
were just literally just in front of it before this, we came back into the room and we were looking at Instagram and we were trying to guess, is that a real video? Is it real? Was it real or not real? So you need to guess whether it's real or
But this
not.
is what you're saying as well, about that's how you get in the AI searches as well, when you create the best content in class. Because people are like, you know, you're going to struggle if you're behind a paywall like Financial Times. But as a brand, right, you can create absolutely show-stopping content with real human beings in, or you can get people to create it with real human beings. Again, I'm saying that stuff. but content is the way forward, I believe, still in the future. But very well-researched and trusted content that people can rely on.
Well, Laura was saying we have a job to do now. We might all change into content creation. Well, which we use the word, if I would probably make notes, the trust word was used so much in this now little debate here.
And
Payments-
loyalty through the
and
different
loyalty.
panels. Loyalty, subscription, trust.
Trust. So if I say payments, trust, and compliance, so what do you think the innovation in payments processing, such as like an AI-assisted fraud detection, for example, or real-time currency management, or what's the most exciting now to look into when it
Yeah.
comes to payments world?
Yeah. I think in payments, I mean, if you look at AI, it has been around for some time, right? I mean, what's creating the hype cycle now is more the generative AI. But AI from an ML and machine learning perspective has been there for a decade or more. And that's where, I think we are too focused on the checkout conversion sometimes, but a lot of things happen before and after the conversion, as Luciana also said. Before the conversion, you're still looking at who the customer is. In case of credit, can we underwrite this customer? How much credit can we take on this customer for how long? And with AI, what's interesting is now that it's not only a human that we are now trying to verify. It could be the AI proxy of that human, could be an agent or via an LLM, for example. And not that we had already solved human-related fraud issues, now that we have AI-related fraud mitigation to take care of, right? So I think that's one place where it would make a lot of sense. The second thing I think is just the discovery. So far we have talked about discovery of brands and what people want to buy, but how does in an agentic world people would discover payments? What do they want to pay with? In what circumstances would they like to pay with a card versus not to pay with a card? And then who dictates these terms and who's owning the decision-making criteria? Because protocols are being set up, but they are not the decision-making criteria. And over there, I feel just like we have personalization on the buying journey, I think that there'll be a personalization on the payment journey also. So I, as Bandhan, would love my agent to always consider X, Y, Z, or when I'm buying this, go for this payment. So I think there'll be personalization on the payment choice as well.
In a compliance world,
Yeah.
now, back in a day when in a payments world we were introducing chip and PIN, it was very fast, so that consumers were so confused. Did it work? It did. It was just super fast. So the industry decided purposely to slow it down in order to create that moment of friction for you to trust it, because it was super fast. So there is always that balance between a little bit of a friction builds trust, going back to the word. Too much friction kills conversion. So any debate on that? Do you want to start and then we maybe
If
go to
I can
Lucia?
just mention,
Oh,
I
go.
think, especially in the B2B space, one of the things that, and it happens in a lot of industries, you don't have to be great, you have to be better than the competition. And sometimes when you think about payments and you think about B2B transactions, because you don't compare it to B2C, you don't need to be as seamless sometimes. You're okay with having a little bit more of a process or a little bit more of a debate if you use this experience or not. So I think for me the key point is what is the comparison point, as you said. At that point in time it was new, so people needed to have that friction to understand it. Right now when you compare it to Amazon you were mentioning, it's like, man, the competition is so advanced, so we really have to step up our game. So for me, I think the bar is so high right now that I don't know if shoppers will accept friction in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I believe that trust is everything, especially in the B2B business. And I don't fully agree with, launching a million features. Sometimes I just think it's about really understanding who your partners are, understanding what their pain points are, and helping them get through them in the smoothest way possible, right? And again, I think the human touch is something that in that case cannot be replaced. We can use technology and leverage it to make smarter decisions, to make better tools for, in this case, our travel partners. But at the end of the day, we get their feedback from our commercial staff and from these meetings, these conferences, because that's where you really understand what their pain points are, and you can, from a strategic manner, attack it in the right way. Especially in our case, when we have some tech that it's built in-house. From a payment perspective, we have a lot of partnerships, so we really need to make accurate decisions in what we launch, when we launch it, and adapt to the markets. Hotel Beds works in 170 countries. We have available payment methods in all of the regions. For example, you were just mentioning the buy now, pay later, which is something that is trending here in Europe. Installments have been working in LATAM for so many years now. So at the end of the day, feedback is key, and the trust of your partners and the information that you get from them is strategic to move forward.
You mentioned payments and fraud, right, just before. And I used to not care at all where I'd store my data, right? Let's say 7 years ago, I would sign up to websites, not think too much about it. I wouldn't have 2FA turned on, I met someone the other day who didn't even know what 2FA was. I was very worried. But it was our CTO. No, it wasn't. And now I am very paranoid about where I store my data. And we just had a chat yesterday about how we can reverse engineer ChatGPT to give us information on competitors. There are ways to do this, right? So if you're sharing too much in ChatGPT, be very careful, or your employees or the rogue ones might be, let's say, that because you don't have compliance. So I think people are going to become more paranoid as soon as they get one of those dark web alerts on like the credit checking system, like I've had before. Your data's been revealed. They're instantly wised up to giving data. That's why I love open banking, because if I've already bought into the why of the marketplace, I would love to sign up with open banking and connect my bank to pay in a more secure way. And someone mentioned digital wallets, because then I don't have to give you all of the data in your platform. Really random example of why I hate giving too much data. I mentioned paddle at the start. There are 6 paddle clubs in our local area. They are all set up by like the tennis coach who's like, 60 maybe, whatever. He's been playing tennis all his life. He's built a paddle court. He's used this app to set up. Everyone's giving their data. There's 6 different apps. And everyone's a bit funny about it. One of the apps got hacked, right? Because they're not secure. So there's just this big, and now everyone's worried about signing up to the other apps. I mean, there's a gap there in terms of how we connect to these types of sports apps. But there's this trust problem, again, with where we share our data. So I want to know, what are the standards of how you're sharing and storing data? Like truly, like as a consumer, I think this is going to become very important. Like if I'm giving all of this information to you, what are you actually, how are you storing it? And is there a gold standard for data storage? And is it being used in AI in any way? And what AI is using it? And is it being trained on the models? Like all of that shit is going to become more important, because me as a non-paranoid data person, if I'm thinking like that, there's people way more paranoid than me in our business.
Yeah.
So
I wish there is more paranoid people, to be honest, because what I'm finding is that a lot of people, with the way that people interact with, especially with the ChatGPTs of the world and Canvas, is because they are responding as humans. You forget that they're not humans, and you start asking them genuine questions. You become open to them, which is the wrong thing to do. You're uploading their medical data and asking for so all of that, nobody's asking a question. Yeah. Where is that stored? Who is taking care of it? There's some programmer somewhere made maybe a mistake in a program and it leaks somewhere. So they say these days that quantum is going to make changes. And today, theft when it comes to fraud and stealing data is actually stolen today with the future in decryption in mind. So today's data and lots of breakthroughs that are happening in the background, as we speak, probably a couple of data is already broken today, and they don't even hit the news. But they're stolen for later. Once the quantum comes, they can decrypt it. So any from your perspective on payment side, considering that fraud always, it used to be that fraud happens where the money is, but now fraud happens where the information is.
Yeah. And I think I'll also connect it to your previous point on the compliance part of it, right? I think for so long in payments, we have been averse to friction because it was always about conversion and fast, just getting the transaction through. And I think now it's a good time to differentiate between good friction and bad friction. Good friction is good for building trust. Like as a human, I feel I've been asked enough information and I've been told where this information is going. So I'm okay with additional 1 or 2 steps. Versus what I call as a bad friction is that you're putting so much friction, but you're not explaining to the customer why this information is being asked, where it's going to get stored. So I'm just generally concerned about it. And that's why I think a lot of us are saying that a lot of friction, I call it bad friction because you're not being told what happens with this information, you're just being asked for it. And one example I would like to take is, for example, from a regulations perspective, there's bound to be a little bit more friction in some kind of payment methods. There's going to be PSD3, there's going to be Consumer Credit Directive, and obviously there'll be some good friction that will be introduced. How you position it to the end customer is extremely important. One of the things that we are trying to tell the customer is that this is to protect you from future fraud. Or this is to protect you from future disputes. Like we talked about, operationally, there's still a lot to be done. So check out, if you go to a Trustpilot and Google review, nobody's saying my payment got rejected. They're saying what happens after the payment was successful because there was a chargeback, there was a dispute, the order did not arrive, it was not. So everyone is worried about what happened post. So what can you do during the checkout in the payments experience, the good friction, that you do not allow these bad experiences to happen later? And that's how I would probably say that to balance compliance and speed at the same time.
Following Helen's end, I would also like to do a bit of a crystal ball moment. We used to say what happens in 5 years. We just need to figure out what happens in the next 12 months. That's the speed we need. So a crystal ball moment. So briefly from each of you, Luciana, want to try. So where are we? What are we talking about? Now in this context, 12 months from now.
12 months. From a AI and regulation perspective, I think there's a lot of gray areas and there will be a lot of hot topics regarding this. I hope we have more clarity regarding what's going on the back end of all of this. But from a personal perspective and as a business or a merchant, I would really put my focus on Gen Z. This generation is willing to pay more than 35% than the average consumer. And all of us here might be thinking in our standard way of view, but they think completely different. And it was covered in one of the panels. And I would really be thinking as a business, how can I adapt to these new generations? How can I think about the box? And Richard showed it very clearly in his slides. And I would definitely put a lot of energy there because that's where I really see the growth opportunity for both B2B and B2C.
Perfect. So I agree. I think the key thing, and you were mentioning it all the time, is what is your audience? What is your shopper? You mentioned Gen Z, you mentioned sneaker collectors that they need trust. Who are the shoppers of the marketplace and what can you do to give them the best experience? And for that, 2 angles. One internal, which I think is the most important one. You mentioned it, but it's the data. As AI is coming, as new technologies are coming, get your data in place. Acquisition, harmonization. I can ask all of us here, if you build your tech stack today, will be different than the one that you have. So think about how do you harmonize the data for what's coming, otherwise we'll be late. And then the external factor, we discussed it today. Social commerce, agentic, all of that is happening. So all the retailers that we know, they're going to have a layer of Gen AI or social commerce on top. It may be in 12 months, it may be in 5 years, but those 2 things, prepare your data and understand how your products or your brand show in these models, because you're going to need it.
Where are we in 12 months? Where are we? What are we talking about?
I can give you 5 years if you want. I think as AI and tech becomes all-consuming, especially for a young audience, people will rediscover what is actually powerful for them, which is disconnection and real connection with other people, and they will slow down on their consumerism. This is idealistic as well as what I think will happen, because the more we want people to get invested in tech, the more it eventually pushes them away from those experiences and they want to unplug. So I really think we will see the brands that win will be the ones that help people to enrich their lives and that help them to be better whilst also consuming along the way. And I especially think that's important as AI. And if Elon Musk rolls out the Tesla bots like he's planning to over the next 5 years, and we truly see armies of bots and real-life robots, right? People will become even more passionate about spending time with real people that they care about and trying to consume less, I think will happen. And don't get me wrong, people are still going to buy, but it's about helping them to buy the things that they actually need that enrich their lives, and the brands that do that will be the ones that absolutely dominate and win the most.
And that are aligned to their values
Yes.
and their principles, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, that appeal to the
Payments.
heart.
Yeah, payments in 12 months.
Yeah, just carrying on from that, I think what I'm also hearing a lot is what is changing. But if you just look at all the themes, trust, brand, being true to yourself, it's also about asking what will not change, because people still want a trust, they still want somebody to believe in. And I think these things have not changed 10 years back, they will not change 5 years after. So that's where you can really ground yourself, that what are the core user problems that will not change, right? So that's where you can build on it. And coming to the let's say the future part of it, I think my bet would be on identity, because we went from a physical store world to the online store world. So now we have 2 identities, and now we'll have 3 identities with the LLMs and the agentic world. And I think from a payments perspective, really to think about how to merge these 3 worlds and know that this is the same human we are talking to, no matter they're coming via different channels. So I know what to call it. It's omni-channel still, or what. But I think identity is where I would bet would be the next big theme for the next 12 months.
Well, first of all, thank you. One thing that I would say at the end is I found myself last week 10 minutes away from Bristol, and I couldn't even get the Google map to work, so I wouldn't worry about the robots yet. So we don't have a coverage in the rural areas of
Did
UK.
you use an A to Z?
And then, from my end, I would say I will end it like on all fools and horses, and next year this time we'll be millionaires. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, before you all go, I've just got a bit of an announcement to make. So just bear with me a second. We've got drinks coming at 4 this afternoon, guys, and we're going to have round tables with real humans. And in those round tables, I hope that you get to meet everybody in this conference if you move around from table to table. So I think that's when we're going to have the fun. So we come back, we've got an hour for lunch now, we'll come back for a couple more sessions, and then let's act like real humans and have some chat. All right? Thank you.